The Revolution Podcast, Episode 16, Feedback for Kashmir. Golden Spiral Media presents The Revolution Podcast. Support for The Revolution Podcast is provided by listeners like you and Think Geek. Charm the geeks in your life by giving them geeky goods from Think Geek. Think Geek has fun stuff for every Trekkie, Jedi, Whovian, Browncoat, Cortexiphan, and so much more. Bacon. Visit goldenspiralmedia.com/Think Geek today. Welcome back to the Revolution Podcast, everybody. I'm Daryl.
And I'm Jeremy.
I had to rush it in that time.
I was just going to let you have it.
Oh, I rushed for nothing.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. We can just kind of take a moment here. I was going to wear a cashmere scarf this week, and I completely forgot.
What about a cashmere sweater?
No, that's too hot. Your office doesn't feel like it's very cool.
I thought about wearing my Thunder beanie to go along with my Oklahoma City Thunder t-shirt that I'm wearing, but it's a warm. It got up to 73 degrees today in Oklahoma City, which is weird being in mid-November.
Yeah.
Actually getting closer to late November.
Give it a day, it'll be down to 30 again.
Well, next week it's supposed to be in the 30s, actually. Yeah, so I might wear the Thunder beanie next week. It does get warm in the studio here with the doors closed and all the equipment on.
Mm-hmm.
But this is also either the warmest or the coldest room in the house. So with it turning into the 30s this time next week, it'll actually be pretty comfortable in here, but I still might bust out the Thunder beanie.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Well, I like to, in my own personal office, when it's cold, I just turn the computer on for heat.
Yeah, exactly. Shut the door, turn that on, and you never know. All right, well, we are here taking the feedback that we received for this week's episode of Revolution, entitled Kashmir, as I mentioned. And we're so grateful for everybody that sent in feedback, so let's get right to it. Alrighty, let's get things kicked off this week with some audio feedback from Kome.
Guys, this is Kome from Savannah, Georgia, calling about the Revolution podcast, Revolution episode, Kashmir. I think this is probably my favorite episode of the series. I gave it a 10 out of 10. It had everything I would want from a television series, and it had everything I've been hoping for on this Revolution show. Especially it had Kashmir, it had Led Zeppelin in it, which made me very happy. I'm a big fan of Led Zeppelin. I'm also a big fan of Eric Kripke, and I've watched Supernatural from the beginning. He has a bunch of Led Zeppelin references in his in Supernatural, from episode titles to random quotes from the characters. Also, Dean Winchester's favorite band is Led Zeppelin. So I was very happy once Since I've Been Loving You came on, and also especially when Kashmir came on, it made me very excited. And I'm glad that Eric Kripke finally got his wish of having a Led Zeppelin song played on one of his shows. It's been a long time coming, and I enjoyed it, and that was my favorite part of this episode, was when Kashmir kicked off. On to Charlie. This is the first episode. I did not find her offensive. I actually liked her in this episode, which was good. So hopefully they keep her on the same current trend, which for what they did in this episode, I think her character would be a lot better if they just tone everything down with her and just made her a little bit more consistent, a little bit more mellow. Besides that, great episode. Very, very excited for the rest of the season and the rest of the series. This was a really good episode. All right, guys, take care. Talk to you later. Bye.
All right. Thank you so much, Kome. So it sounds like he's a big Led Zeppelin fan.
I didn't get that from his
You didn't get that at all?
No.
Oh,
no,
I guess it's something I just dreamed up then.
Maybe you hallucinated it.
Maybe I did. Yeah, no, but he did say that he found Charlie less annoying this episode. So he's one of those that's kind of finding her annoying.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all right.
He likes I'm going to call her Mellow Yellow for the blonde.
Mellow Yellow?
Hey, was it Mellow Yellow or Yellow Mellow? Mellow Yellow.
It was Mellow Yellow.
It's a great drink.
soda?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They've kind of brought it back. I don't know if it's still around though.
Man, I haven't had that in forever.
Yeah.
What was it? The bubble gum, Big Red. Did you ever drink Big Red when you were a kid?
I don't know. Was it strawberry?
No, it was kind of like a
Oh wait,
kind of like a bubble gum.
I had it one time and really didn't like it.
Yeah,
So.
it's definitely like when I was a kid, man, we loved Big Red. But then I had it later as an adult and I was like, this stuff is garbage.
Yeah.
How did we ever drink this stuff when I was a kid? I don't know how we got off onto that from Kome's feedback.
I'm sorry, mellow yellow. Sorry, Kome.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. Do you have anything else to add about what he was saying there?
Well, I mean, yeah, Kashmir. He likes that Zeppelin.
Uh-huh.
So I think most of us can agree that they're a pretty good band. So,
Yeah.
But we're also excited to see what happens in March and next week, and it looks like he's looking forward to more episodes. So.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, why don't we move on here? And I'm using the wrong trackpad for the wrong computer once again. This one comes in from Owen.
Hey, this is Owen from Dublin. Just calling for feedback for the Revolution podcast. Just finished watching it. A really good episode. I loved the twist with Rachel at the end and how she killed her colleague. No one saw that coming. That was just great. So I just wanted to say, really great show. Been really liking your podcast lately. Really good. So that's it. Just to answer Jeremy's question a few weeks back regarding my own feedback was my dog's name is actually Walt, who I named after Walt's character, the character Walt in Lost. So every time my dog runs away, I get to shout, Walt! Walt! Have you seen my dog? Okay, just thanks guys. Short feedback. Just love the show. Thanks.
I love that.
I do too. So.
Now, how are you on Lost?
Enough, like I've said, enough to know that how I feel about the end. But
okay.
Yeah, but that was. You seem like you want to go somewhere with that.
No, I didn't know if you were even aware how much you had watched it. I mean, you only have to see the first few episodes of the first season to know, the whole Walt gag.
Right. Right.
Then Michael goes off looking for him, and it was like, Walt. Just Walt. It was like, I don't know how many times Michael said the name Walt, but it got to be pretty funny at times.
Yeah.
And then, he had the dog Vincent, and that's one of the, have you seen my dog? So to be, I think it's hilarious, Owen. I do.
I agree. And thank you for sharing your dog's name. I don't know. I'm a dog guy, so.
Are you?
I feel connected now.
I'm not an animal hater, but I don't have a personal use for them in my family.
Yeah, you've got 2 kids there.
That's plenty. They're animal enough for me, right? Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, Owen, for sending in. Any other comments on what he had to say there?
No, it sounds like he agrees with us with the twist, and that's so far what I'm getting back from everybody.
Okay. All right. Let's read a couple here. This first one comes in from David. David says, Daryl and Jeremy, great podcast. The show is getting better each week. I have a question for your next podcast. With the info being revealed each week, and now knowing that Grace is with Randall, who do you think Grace was talking to on her computer the day Randall showed up at her house? And where are they going now? Again, great job, David. All right, so who was Grace talking to, and where are they going now? And I'm not sure what she means by where are they going now. Does she mean where Randall said that she needed to go?
Well, she just says, where are they now?
Oh, where are they now? Okay, yeah. I misread that. Yeah. Thanks.
We kind of guessed about where they were last week.
We did with the particle accelerator outside of Chicago.
Right.
I'm sticking with that.
I think I'm gonna.
And that came in via feedback.
Right.
That's how we came up with that. We liked it so much we agreed with that.
Yeah. So
but who was she talking to?
That has perplexed me the entire series. It could be somebody in a different location, such as one of the other regions or whatever.
Okay.
But I really have no idea.
Yeah, I don't think it's anybody that we've met yet.
Oh, yeah, I definitely agree with that statement. So I think if we'd have met them, we'd have seen the computer at some point. So
Yeah, maybe, but
It could be Julia.
Julia. Now that would be a cool twist, wouldn't it?
That would be an interesting twist.
Yeah.
And I would be on board for that.
Huh.
But I don't think it's Julia.
I don't think so either. But that's cool. It's a cool idea.
Yeah.
So that's my only thing I could tell you, David, is that I would think it's somebody that we haven't met yet. So I don't know.
Yeah.
But one of the 12 pendant holders, obviously.
We think.
Well, they have a computer. The only way you get a computer to work is if you have a pendant.
Or a amplifier in the city.
Yeah.
No?
I'd say a pendant holder. One of the 12.
All right.
All right, you want to take the next one there?
Yep. All right, I'm going to take a shot at this. It's Hi Jaramelli.
Jaramelli. If it's got the silent D on the
it
front.
It does.
Like Django.
Anything
Unchained.
with DJs. Got to be a silent D, right? So I'm going to go with Jaramelli.
The Jaramelli. I like the Jaramelli. That's pretty good. Keeps the D in front.
I'm gonna stay with Jaramelli.
All right, whatever.
And excuse me, I don't know who wrote this. So the Unibeefer, it looks like, says he's combined them, so no one is first. I like that. So thank you. He says, I posted my season 1 prediction in the live chat this last week, during Ties That Bind, but I wanted to cement it in podcast form in case it does come true. By the end of season 1, I predict, and I being Unibeefer, Jason will side with our merry band shortly. My guess is right around the break. 2, Tom will go AWOL a few episodes later. I originally said 3 episodes before the end of the season, but this last episode makes me revise to a few episodes after Jason sides with Charlie because of his son. 3, Tom will side with his son and Miles, etc. to bring down Monroe. But 4, only long enough to remove Monroe from his command of the militia, gaining control for himself, having used Miles to achieve his goal. He knows he needs Miles to defeat Monroe, so he dupes him into fighting the common enemy. Monroe will not die this season. That's his 5th prediction. He says that Tom will keep him held captive to show the Republic how much more benevolent he is as a leader. And 6, season 2 will surround Tom's militia, ruled from behind by his wife, his son's conflict of loyalty being greater. He says that's my prediction, subject to change at random. Odd as always, the Unibeefer. He's got some pretty interesting predictions. So.
Yeah, Matthew, why, you say here at the end, that's my prediction, subject to change at random. So he's not taking on the I'm going to throw out a theory and stick with it. I'm going to throw out a theory and then change.
Abandon it.
Yeah.
Well, I think a lot of are sound theories.
I think that I like them anyway. I'm giving him a hard time because he joke around a lot. Yeah. But what do you think about him?
Well, like I said, I think it's sound. I mean, he has Jason defecting, which I think a lot of us kind of expect to happen.
Mm-hmm.
He has Tom going AWOL to side with his son, which I think could happen. And I like his reasoning behind it so he can take control. So you think he's defected. In reality, he's just planning something bigger. And right. I like that more than just a defection. Tom, like we've said, has so many paths he could take right now. I think his choices are wonderful. So I like seeing other opinions on those.
Yeah.
His prediction that Monroe will not die this season, I think is, I think it's a good prediction. I mean, some people say that Monroe dying is obvious.
You've come out and said that he's going to die next week.
Yeah, but I was more or less trying to take the unobvious road. So.
Oh, I see. I don't think it's obvious that he's going to die.
Yeah. Well, I'll be interested if Monroe does not die at all this season.
Yeah.
But I like his reasoning for it. So Tom shows that he's a benevolent leader.
Uh-huh.
That's going to get Tom killed in the end if Tom keeps him alive.
Oh, sure.
But then he also predicts that season 2 will be around Tom's militia, and Julia will be right there along with him. And I think that'd be good to see. I'd like to see Tom take a bigger role, and I'd love to see Julia take a bigger role in the show. So.
I'd like to see him bring in some of the other territories out there You know, and they've planted seeds for that. I mean, the map itself is a seed, but beyond that, we've heard that there's a conflict going on near St. Louis.
Right.
I think that was between the Georgia Federation. The Georgia Federation had teamed up with the Plains to kind of fight against Monroe at that front. So I'd love to see next season kind of dive off into some of those. Not to abandon our characters, you know, to still tie it in, but to start giving us a broader view of the world, you know, what they're living in.
And I think next season we'll see pretty much what you're saying. I think we're going to see more of the other territories. Heck, even after this long break, I think we're going to start seeing a development among the Civil War, if you will. So,
okay.
And I think, like I said, Monroe is going to be dead for that, but who knows? We'll see.
Yeah, we will. Good feedback. Thanks, Matthew, for sending that in. Let's get back to the audio feedback with Alternicat. Oh, I guess I didn't get the thing set right. Let's try that again.
Hello. I don't know whose name to pick to say first, so I'm going to, from now on, collectively refer to you guys as Jeremy. So, hello, Jeremy. This is Kathleen from Chicago, a.k.a. Alternicat. I'm calling for the Revolution podcast. Wow, what a great episode this week. First of all, our team is already in Philadelphia, and we aren't even halfway through season 1. And, you know, the great Danny quest is already starting to wrap up. I'm really happy with how quickly this storyline is progressing, and that tells me that Kripke has all sorts of other fun things up his sleeve, and I can't wait to see where they go next with these characters. So just when I was starting to wonder where the old, conflicted Miles was, we get this great hallucination scene this week where Miles lets us in on his deep, dark secret that it wouldn't take much to push him back over to the dark side and rejoin Monroe. And I wonder what exactly it is about that life that he misses. Was it the power or the comfort or just the friendship? So that is something that I thought was really intriguing about last night. One quick thing about the pendants, something I can't figure out is if Ben and Rachel and Grace and the others have had the ability to turn the power back on this whole time, why haven't they? If they were indirectly responsible for the blackout, because they were the ones who invented the technology that caused it, wouldn't they feel a responsibility to put things right and as soon as possible? That's something I haven't been able to figure out, why they've just been sitting on those pendants this whole time and doing nothing about it. Well, anyway, thanks, guys. That's all for now, and I will see you in Philadelphia.
See us in Philly.
Oh,
I would love to go back to Philly. That's where I grew up.
Really?
Yeah, I was born and raised in Philly, on the west side.
Oh, right.
Yeah, you didn't know
You
that?
just spend most of your days playing b-bye outside?
No. Are you serious?
What do you mean I'm serious?
You making a joke out of this?
No, I'm not making a joke out of this. I'm completely serious. You played b-ball outside, right?
Well, okay, there was a couple of guys, and I got in a little trouble, and my mom sent me... Okay, I am kidding, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a good question about the pendants. If they had the pendants and the power to turn the power back on, why haven't they turned the power back on? And that's definitely a huge question that we could try to speculate on. You want to take a stab at it first?
Speculation. Well, it's a good question. It's a fair question, and I'm pretty sure pretty much every viewer has asked that, even if not out loud. So I'd like to know why as well. I mean, other than the fact that they didn't want somebody discovering that they had power and then maybe coming in and taking it over. They kept it secret. But
I mean, that could be. I mean, if you don't have the power to defend yourself, if you do have the secret to turn the power back on, then maybe that's the best course of action. Is and they did. It looks like they went their own separate ways and tried to separate the power.
Right.
You know,
they're kind of scattered. So.
Yeah. I think that'll become more clear when we understand why the power went off in the first place, who did it and why they did it and stuff like that.
Yeah, I agree. And she kind of speculated. She said if they had the power to fix it, or if they were partly responsible, well, maybe they weren't partly responsible.
Yeah.
And maybe this is kind of something that shows that in reality, somebody took it and then weaponized it out of their, I guess, influence.
Right,
So,
out of their original work.
Right.
Yeah, could be.
She also mentioned Miles hallucinating, and that his secret. She seemed like she likes that, and I would agree with her.
I like it. It adds some depth and some intrigue to what he's going through. She also asked, why would he want to come back? And it seems like the only reason he left was because it had gotten too bloody, and he tried to kill Monroe so that the blood would stop, but it ended up not working, and he had to run for his life, I think.
Right.
I think he misses the friendship. I think he's alone, until Charlie came along, and he had built up these walls around him, and those walls are being, chiseled away at. But I think he's lonely. I think he misses his lifelong friend.
Yeah.
I think if he had a desire to go back in time and change things, or had a way to get that relationship back to the way it was, I think he would go for that.
Well, you mentioned back in time. Hey.
There we go with the time travel theory again.
Just saying.
All right. So. Well, that's cool, Alternative. Thank you for sending that in. We appreciate it. And here's our last audio for the night. This one comes in from Mark.
Hey everyone, Mark from Ontario, Canada here. Since I missed last week, I'd like to start off with a short feedback for Ties That Bind before moving on to Kashmir. When Julia had the maid tell Tom her story, my first impression was that the maid was afraid of Julia and not Tom. She looked scared and kept looking at Julia. While telling her story, Julia kept finishing her sentences. And the maid didn't actually say that the colonel's son was in the resistance. She just said he was mixed up in something. After she left, Julia was the one that said he was in the resistance. Later, Monroe tells Tom that the colonel's son and friends were found with munitions and were executed on the spot without being questioned. The colonel claims that he's been estranged from his son for several years, but Monroe can't trust him. I think Julia heard from the maid about the colonel and his son being estranged, and she created the story of him being in the resistance herself in order to save Jason and move Tom up in Monroe's favor. I find it funny that on Randall's map showing the different republics and commonwealths, that the Canadian and Mexican borders remain intact. Okay, now on to Kashmir. I wasn't impressed with this episode. There was no flashbacks, no new reveals. If it wasn't for the Led Zeppelin music, I would rate this one a complete bust. In point form, does Nora know the location of every resistance camp? The rebels go from beating Miles and threatening to kill him to letting him walk around their camp unguarded and with his sword? I don't get it. There's a wall that surrounds Philadelphia? That's quite a feat. I always presumed that Nora met Miles after he left the militia, but we find out that she knew him when he was the general. Makes me wonder more about Nora's past. I wasn't surprised about Miles' failed attempt to assassinate Monroe. We know they had a falling out before he left. Is it really a big surprise that it involved Miles pointing a gun at Bass? Would Charlie even know what a mine is in order to look so scared? And I can't believe Nora left Charlie on the mine to go explore to see where the minefield ended. Rachel says the pendant only works up to 9 to 10 feet. Then how did the lighthouse turn on? Sure, Aaron was close to the generator that ran it, but the power had to travel up some wire or something and would have been halted once it left the pendant's radius. I don't know about you guys, but my CD players have always reset after losing power. They never continued playing right where they left off. My biggest beef with this episode was the "we're losing air" problem. Even if the collapse cut off the air supply, there would have been enough air in that tunnel to last them for weeks, and that's if there was no possibility of air getting in. Like, let's say from a door shot full of bullet holes? I admit, I didn't think Rachel was actually building a bomb. Guess she isn't really working for Monroe like we speculated. I think she did give in too quickly to Bass and could have forced the "it's his word against mine" thing. As soon as Bass told her that he didn't need her anymore, I turned to my wife and told her that she was going to kill her friend. She's a survivalist. She killed that guy that tried to take their food. This isn't much different. She does what she has to in order to survive. Well, that's it for my feedback. I just want to send out a thanks to the revolutionaries in the chat room. Because of you guys, I bought Fringe Seasons 1 through 4, and the complete Firefly series. I know what I'll be doing this hiatus season.
Excellent.
Start with Firefly.
Hey, speaking of, Best Buy is going to have Fringe Season 4 for $9.99 on Black Friday.
Blu-ray?
Blu-ray.
Really?
Yes.
Season 4?
Yes. And I think I saw they were going to have Firefly for $7.99, but don't quote me on that.
I already have like 5 copies of it, so
Yeah.
I'm good
But
on Firefly.
Not all of our listeners do. So.
True.
Yeah, so there's going to be some great deals out there on Black Friday for those two.
Yeah.
You're going to love those, Mark. And Mark's in the chat room right now. And I'm glad he did. Somehow I had overlooked his feedback when it came in. And so he came in right as we were starting and asked if we had his feedback, and I didn't have it queued up. Pulled up the email, got it slotted in, and that's why we had the issue with Alternacat's audio not starting right away. But yeah, so he's in the chat room, and you're going to love those, Mark, both of those Fringe. And I happen to know a really good Fringe podcast called The Fringe Podcast, and I happen to know a really good Firefly podcast that you can get over at cuttingthecable.com, cuttingthecablepodcast.com.
Shameless plug.
Shameless plug is right. Both of those Clint and I have done. All right, let's talk about some of his feedback, though.
All right. Well, there's a lot kind of dissect right here, so I'm going to start where he started. Ties that bind.
Yeah.
He mentions the maid being afraid of Julia, and man, I love that.
I think he's exactly right.
So I hadn't even crossed my mind that it was just a lie that Julia made up. So
Yeah.
thank you, Mark, for that. I guess we don't really have anything else. My mind's blown. So
Yeah, no, I think he's spot on that. I mean, and that's the cunningness of Julia. Well, we talked last week about the maids. They don't have any power. They're at the mercy. Julia might have said to her, I'm going to kill you, or maybe she had some dirt on her. I don't know. I mean, Julia is take no prisoners either.
Yeah.
Manipulator.
Yeah.
So I like that a lot. He also talked about the mimes, and I didn't see any mimes in this episode. I didn't really see any use for mimes or how they would relate at all. So, I mean, we're talking about Marcel Marceau here. I'm not sure what he's talking about.
we're just going to let you go ahead of me, and I'm going to fall back on that one.
Is that not what he meant? He said M-I-N-E, didn't he? I misunderstood. Our Fringe fans will get that.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll get
I
that.
figured they would.
Hopefully they'll think it's funny. Here's the thing on the mines. Why would Nora, take the time to find them all before she rescued Charlie? Because if she didn't, and she rescued Charlie, and then they go to run, well, then they're going to stay up on the next mine and die that way. So they had to identify all the mines before they tried to retreat or rescue her from the mine. That's why that happened.
And I agree with that. She marked them all, and at the time they had to have a way back out, so they would need to know where those mines are
Right.
when they return. So I think having those marked would be very helpful. She mentions Miles being let out with the sword as well. I say she.
Around
sorry.
the camp. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mark mentions that Miles is out with the sword, and I think that's completely on Wheatley, because he's in the interrogation room.
Right.
And the other guy kind of talks to him to confer, and then they let him out. So he has a hand in it. He's trusted by these people. He's probably one of the few that's left. He's been there for a while, if you read the footnotes.
Well, he mentioned that he'd been undercover for 2 years.
Yeah. So they're trusting him, and he's probably high enough in the ranks, one of the veterans, that anything he says will probably be swung.
Yeah.
So,
That's probably true.
but
He also had issues with the air supply. We talked about that. We had the same issues. In the end, my recap of this episode that I tweeted last night was, this was an episode that was a journey to get an air supply, but in the end, Led Zeppelin was the answer. If only they had been going to Boston.
well,
But they were in America.
they were on a journey.
I did say journey.
I know.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Just
And there was an AC/DC shirt.
was he in that shirt
Yeah,
still?
he was.
I looked, and it was too dark in the subway. So
Yep. Okay, let's move on. Mark, thank you so much for sending that in. Thank you again for putting that out in the chat room. I would have definitely overlooked that. All right, let's get back to the written feedback. This one comes in from Aaron. He says, Daryl and Jeremy, I was mortified at how bad my letter sounded when you guys read it during the podcast. Hopefully this one is a little better. And that was probably my reading. It probably wasn't your letter. Okay, regarding Rachel, I want her to die because I just can't stand flippy-floppy characters. 1 minute she's helping Monroe, then the next she's acting like she is the devil. It all started when she left Ben originally. They never did explain why she all of a sudden up and left. It feels like she had a thing for Monroe at some point, and now he is holding that over her head. You guys were talking about what would be more catastrophic than losing the power. My first reaction was the same as what you talked about, nuclear war and chemical or biological attacks. Then I started thinking about what might be more powerful than that and could possibly cause a revolution. Well, it hit me. Information. We are smack dab in the middle of the information age. You take the ability for people to have instant access to information on anything away. If you take that away, and it allows the leadership to dictate what people know. The second part of that is now they no longer have access to social media. Look at how Twitter and Facebook have changed uprisings in places like Syria, Egypt, and Libya. This is why so many countries like China have a chokehold on what they allow their citizens to see on the internet. Even here in the U.S., we hear about it all the time on the news about how politicians want to dictate what you should and shouldn't have access to. When looking at the map, I was thinking that the dot may have been at Tinker Air Force Base in Midwest City, Oklahoma. That's where the E-6A Mercury Airborne Command and Control aircraft with the nuclear codes are based out of. I know the dot is a little bit south of there, basically on the border with Texas. Most of Hollywood doesn't really care if they are accurate with places in the flyover states. Just a thought. Thanks again for the great podcast. From deep in the heart of the California Commonwealth, Viva la Revolucion, Aaron. And Aaron, CCW, is in the chat room right now. He and I were talking about this in the chat room last night before the show started, because I told him, I said, well, actually, Tinker Air Force Base is right here in Oklahoma City.
Right.
And, you know, I've lived in Wichita Falls also. I think the dot is not Oklahoma City. And he says, you know what? I used to be stationed at Tinker Air Force Base.
Oh, really?
He's in the military now and in San Diego. And I said, well, then you obviously know where Tinker Air Force Base is. So he knew that when he wrote that in. Okay. And he could be right. I mean, with the flyover states, they may not care too much how accurate they are.
Yeah.
But I'm going to stick with Shepherd Air Force Base in Wichita Falls.
Okay. Well, I'm just going to side with him because it's in Oklahoma. It's Tinker.
Okay, fair enough. What about the other things he had to say there about the information being what might be bigger than, you know, chemical or biological warfare?
I think that the information is a great theory, but I have a hard time accepting it as a cause to pretty much destroy the world. He mentions people have a control over, like a chokehold over their citizens, what they see, and that they sometimes want to dictate what we should and shouldn't have access to. But I don't know if that's really a reason to destroy all communication forms in the United States. But it's definitely a plausible. It's a good theory. Again, we still don't know why we do not have power. We don't know who's causing it. So anything right now is definitely up for grabs. So
yeah, I mean, it is. I mean, information is definitely very powerful. It would make for a storyline that I don't think many people would have seen coming.
Yeah.
So is it plausible? I think it is. And I think his points about the power of information are absolutely true.
Yeah.
But is that what happened here? I don't know. It's definitely plausible, though.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then the last thing he mentioned, which was actually the first thing about Rachel's actions, you know, being flippy-floppy.
Yeah.
For me, I felt satisfied after this episode because I felt like some of her flippy-floppiness was explained in that she wanted Monroe to cooperate with her because she was actually building a bomb instead of an amplifier. I don't know. It sounds like he didn't get that same feeling.
Yeah.
But he also mentioned, the actions that she took to leave Ben in the first place, and that's a big mystery that we have no idea what happened, what caused her to do that.
Yeah. We have no idea, and man, it's starting to really itch.
Is it?
I'm ready for them to reveal to us.
I don't know when they're going to do that. I don't know that that's going to be something. That's, I think, a little seed that's going to.
Yeah, it'll last a while,
grow
probably.
For a while, yeah.
So I'm hoping it doesn't last beyond May.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, they teased that it was going to take a drastic turn in the spring. So
yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what that means. That could mean a whole lot of things, and that could be one of them, though.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep. Well, thank you so much for sending that in, Aaron. We appreciate your feedback, and thanks for joining us in the live show tonight.
Indeed. All right, this next letter comes in from Jess in Atlanta. Jess says, "Hey guys, I actually watched an episode on time since I am not working today, so for once my feedback is current. I have to say, I think Elizabeth Mitchell's character is my favorite of the week, and reminds me a lot of her character on Lost. Also, I'm not sure I am satisfied with her explanation for the pendant, although it seemed to work in proximity in that episode. But she did say it was not capable of powering on machines by itself, which we clearly saw it do in the lighthouse. And again, it only worked for a little while for Maggie and Aaron when they clearly did not move away from the electronics. So I am sure it's possible that she is lying to Monroe. Actually, she probably is, because that feels way too inconsistent with what we have seen recently. At least, I am hoping the writers are not going to leave a big plot hole like that, because I sort of felt like the explanation was obviously different from how we had seen it work in the past. Overall, it was a decent episode, but probably not one of my favorites. I really liked the end and the parts with Rachel, but I felt the whole tunnel hallucinations bit didn't really do anything for me. I guess the purpose was really for character development, but surely there was a better way to do that than making them walk through a tunnel for 40 minutes. Anyway, curious to hear your feedback on this one. Have a good holiday. Cheers. Jess in Atlanta.
All right.
Oh, do you want to lead off on this one then?
Oh, I can.
Okay.
I guess I'll start with what Rachel did with the pendant this time. I think she was really just trying to convince Tom and I think it was Captain Burke that she was doing what she said, and she was trying to make them say, look, it'll only work, for small objects within 10 feet.
Right.
And the 10 feet sure seemed like it was accurate. And Mark brought up earlier, Aaron was near the equipment when in the lighthouse, but the electricity would have had to have traveled
right.
up. And I don't know that we can assume that if the power source of that's creating the content, current rather, if that would prevent it from traveling more than 10 feet away.
Right.
I don't know that we know that at this point.
I'm pretty sure we know the opposite of that. When we see Grace at the very beginning on the computer, she's communicating with someone. Well, obviously, they've got to be more than 10 feet away from her.
Okay, but they both have a pendant on their devices,
right.
so
somehow, I mean, that data has to transmit across
right.
whatever line it's on. I'm assuming it's in an old cable or something that it's running through.
Right.
So
some sort of copper line.
Yeah. So I mean, there's a precedent here that power does travel through a wire
once it's activated or whatever. Yeah. So I like that. So, but will it not power high need equipment, if you will? I think she was just trying to dupe them, give them something to trust her on, to limit what their understanding of the pendant was.
I mean, I agree. I think she was just giving them an explanation as to why she would need this, what turns out to be a bond. So to power, and I do like the fact that what she said, a half a mile.
Yes.
For a little amplifier, that's something that is pretty interesting.
Yeah.
So, and that would give their little base a heck of a defense.
If that's even true.
Well, yeah, that's true. He was making a fake amplifier, so.
Right.
Oh.
We don't know exactly. It might be true, but I don't know that we know that.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, like you just said, it was a fake amplifier.
Mm-hmm.
And she mentioned the walking through a tunnel for 40 minutes. Somebody else mentioned that there wasn't really a whole lot of character development this week. I thought the character development through backstory was actually pretty good.
I agree.
We learn their inner thoughts, which was pretty telling on the part of Aaron and Charlie and Miles.
Yeah.
Still can't figure out the alligator thing, but what she says is they still walked through a tunnel for 40 minutes, and I don't know. That's what this show seems to be.
Yeah.
40 minutes of walking, so they can get some dialogue along the way.
Yeah.
It's Lord of the Rings, right?
Fellowship of the Ring, right?
Yeah.
So.
But that is what it is, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else you want to add to that, Jeremy?
No, I'm finished with that one.
Okay. Well, Jess, thank you so much for sending that in, and I love your thoughts and really asking some good questions there. So thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
All right. That leaves one more. This is Jim in Wisconsin. He's in the chat room too. All the cool kids are hanging out in the chat room tonight. He says, "Hey, Daryl and Jeremy. While I can say that I enjoyed parts of this week's episode, I can also say that this was my least favorite episode so far. Some of the hallucinations were good, but it was the last few minutes that really saved it for me. I also liked how the writers used the hallucinations to give us both character development and some history without resorting to the use of flashbacks. It was a different way to get this info out to us, and I think it worked well. The Team Miles was betrayed by someone who is supposed to be a good guy for the second week in a row. I hope that doesn't become a recurring theme going forward. I still think back to Maggie's "don't trust anyone" line. As for our main characters, Charlie was back to her old self after not getting much screen time last week. Stepping on the mine was a rookie mistake. It's a good thing they have an explosives expert on the team. I felt her talk with Miles the night before the raid was a little telling as well. She has complete faith in him and can't see any situation that he won't get them through or out of. I feel that her faith is going to be tested soon, however. I think she's also fully turned the page on her life as well. Now, I can't read. There was no crying or emotional displays when the rebels were shot. She grabbed a dead guy's crossbow and took off after Miles. She didn't even flinch when Ashley was taken down. Looks like she's finally getting the hang of it. Except for that whole almost getting shot in the head part, but we can just chalk that one up to experience and move on. I love the conversation Miles has with his inner Monroe. That's funny. It revealed a few secrets and answers, all to the tune of Kashmir. Miles tried to kill Monroe and left the militia because things were going too far. The best one, though, was that there's a part of him that would be willing to go back and join Monroe. I was kind of shocked to hear it, but it makes for a good plot line down the road. I have a feeling that Miles is going to end up giving in, not because he wants to, but because he has to in order to save the rest of the group. That will make for an interesting second half of the season as Team Charlie tries to get him out of the militia once and for all. As for Rachel, once again she does whatever she has to keep her family safe. This is the second time she's taken a life on screen, and both times I was surprised when it happened. At least we know that she's been trying to kill Monroe with a bomb, but I still think there's more to her than meets the eye. Hopefully the fall finale will shed a little more light on her. Oh, and the footnotes this week about Sergeant Wheatley's backstory. It's an interesting read that may have ended differently had Miles and company not showed up. Thanks again for the podcast, and for those who haven't tried it, the live chat during the episode is a blast. I highly recommend it. From the corner of Shut Up and Stay Here, Jim in Wisconsin.
All right. Yeah. Thank you very much, Jim, for that.
Where do you want to start here with this one, Jeremy?
Well, I just scrolled up back to the beginning of it, so I was going to start there.
Okay.
He was just talking about it's not his favorite episode. Let's see. But he talked about the hallucinations being kind of good, and I agree with him on that, about how they give us that character development and some history without resorting to flashbacks. We've already discussed that, so
Yeah, but he also pointed out that this was the second week in a row that they've been betrayed by somebody.
That's true.
And that didn't occur to me. I'm not worried about that being, becoming the regular thing. I remember a few weeks ago we talked about Charlie being, the victim, when she went in on sex and drugs, and she was also the victim when she went in on the boat for the Children's Crusade.
Right.
And that just turned out to be 2 weeks in a row that happened. So yeah, I'm not worried at all that this will become a regular part of the story.
Yeah. So far, though, it's kind of seemed to me that there's been a lot of twos. If you look at a lot of the episodes, like we have Charlie stumbling 2 episodes in a row. You have 2 stabbings 2 episodes in a row.
Right.
You have this week with the betrayals. There's been a couple of other things that have seemed like they come in episode to episode. So back to back, essentially. So I don't know. It makes me wonder if they're actually planning something and they're giving us clues to the next episode. Either that or they're just not really thinking about it, I guess. So
yeah, I don't know. I mean, they're good plot devices. I don't.
Yeah.
If it came to be an every week thing, but I don't think too much of it. To be honest with you.
And he brings Maggie up with the "Don't trust anyone."
That's right.
So, yeah, maybe it would have been better if they had some poisoned alcohol, but
we need a return of poisoned alcohol. That's for sure.
So
yeah, he said he was also shocked that Rachel killed the guy, and I felt the same way. I didn't see it coming. Maybe I should, but Jim, I'm with you on that. I didn't see it coming either time. Because she's so soft spoken, but
yeah,
man, if it comes down to her children, she turns mama bear instantly.
Right.
So that I'm with you though, Jim. I didn't see it coming either time.
Well, he mentions a bit about Charlie as well, and says that stepping on the mine is a rookie mistake, and I'm going to give her a lot of slack on that particular one because she's probably never seen a landmine.
Right.
So not only are you a rookie, but
you don't even know it exists.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like having bows and arrows and a guy with a musket comes up and you kind of laugh at him because he's pointing a stick at you.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't know what it is. So I'll let her slide on that one. Even though the whole thing kind of did feel a bit convenient, I guess. And it is a good thing they had Nora with them to be able to help disarm it.
Yeah, I don't blame Charlie either at all on that, just because, like I mentioned earlier, I don't even know what mines were doing in that tunnel in the first place.
And it was a dark tunnel too. So.
Yeah, I mean, you brought up a fair point, but I still think it was weird that they were even there in the first place.
Yeah. So we had a bit of a development there, and then he kind of talked about that he thinks she's going to be tested soon with her faith in Miles, and I think that's a great point. As much as I think Miles will ultimately side with her over Monroe, I think that I think it will be tested at some level.
I like what he says here, where Miles could be put in a situation where he really has to join back with the militia for whatever reason, and then there's that dynamic of them trying to rescue him. And then, of course, there's the whole, this is just going to be a show about rescuing somebody, and then rescuing somebody, and then rescuing somebody. So they would need to be careful about that, too. But I do like the idea that maybe Miles sees joining back up with the militia is the only way to save the other people, or, something cool like that. That'd be a neat thing.
Yeah.
We'll see.
He mentions the footnotes. If you've not read them already, you'll probably be listening to this on Thursday. So you're already past Thanksgiving almost, and tomorrow's Black Friday. So when you're standing in line, go ahead and listen to them.
There you go.
Or look at them on your phone if you can. So.
All right. Well, that's the feedback for tonight. Thanks to everybody who sent in feedback. We really appreciate it. We love hearing your thoughts on the episode. You can submit your feedback by calling us on the Golden Spiral Media voice feedback line. It's on 24/7. It goes straight to voicemail. And you have 3 minutes to leave your thoughts, and then it does cut you off. But you can call back if you get cut off. But that number is 304-837-2278. You can also go over to our website, which is goldenspiralmedia.com, and look over there on the very right-hand side of the page. Hugging the edge of the page is a tab that says Send Feedback. That's our SpeakPipe application. You can click on that and submit feedback using the microphone that's built into your computer. We do ask that you listen to that before you send it off to us, just to make sure that we can understand you clearly. And then, of course, you can email us an audio file or a typed out email by sending that off to feedback@goldenspiralmedia.com.
Tappy.
Typey. Yep.
Right.
You can also follow us on Twitter at GSM Podcasts, and every Tuesday we send out the Twitter poll. And I usually send it out pretty early in the day, but today I got busy and didn't remember until about, 3 o'clock.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we didn't get a whole lot of responses. It's totally my fault. But here was the question for this week. Which hallucination in last night's episode did you like best and why? So, Zeppelin Driver responded, and let's see, I'm going about this backwards. I'll start at the very top and work my way down then. A. Tavares76 says, I liked Miles' hallucination. Will he rejoin the militia? Plus some Led Zeppelin in the background. Android Omega says, Miles? Knowing Miles might go back to the militia if it were offered to him was the best info out of the hallucinations. Now we get to Zeppelin Driver. He says, it was a tie. Nora's Star Wars-like monster attack and Charlie's Star Trek Nexus happy place. Did I use both in the same sentence? That's nice. Then we have Eric Ingberg, and Eric says, Aaron's was hilarious the way his wife kept nagging him. It wasn't meant to be funny, but it really was. Bad Wobot 1013 says, I liked Aaron's the most. It had feeling and got pretty tense as it went along. And the last one for tonight is from Alternicat. Alternicat says, Miles, in his vision, we see him still dealing with the internal struggle between the man he used to be and the man he wants to be. So most people liked Miles as the best, which it was pretty intriguing. That reveal that he was having that inner struggle was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
I loved Charlie's, although hers wasn't necessarily a hallucination as much of a dream. I think you and I both agreed on, but I'd still consider it in the bunch. You have Nora's, which was strange, and then Aaron's dealing with his wife. So I think I would pick Miles as well if I had to pick. What about you?
I'd probably go with Miles.
Yeah.
I loved that entire scene. Second favorite of the whole episode. First favorite would be the very end, but
with Rachel.
With Rachel, but
yeah, that was hard to top. They do have some great endings to all these episodes.
Yeah,
they're doing a great job with them.
I agree.
All right, well, thanks to everybody who participated in the Rev Twit poll this week. That's the other thing. Once we send that out, you'll see that on Tuesdays, and you reply using the hashtag RevTwit, and that'll show up in our stream, and that way we can include that into the podcast. All right, I gave away our contact information. I didn't mention the Facebook page. Hook up with us over there at facebook.com/Golden Spiral Media. The deadline to send in feedback is Tuesday at 6 p.m. Eastern. So, of course, next week's the last episode we have for quite a while, but for next week, so when it comes back in March, Tuesdays at 6 p.m. is the deadline. All right. Anything else, my friend? We got everything covered?
Everything's covered.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us for this episode of the Revolution Podcast. We're certainly glad you've joined us. Cannot wait for next week. The fall finale looks to be epic. They're saying it's going to be epic. It's going to be one of those things that we'll have us talking about it for 4 months, anticipating the return, after 4 months. So hopefully it lives up to the hype. We'll see.
I have no idea what the video or the preview looks like.
Yeah,
so.
I won't say anything on that.
Yeah.
I don't believe the preview anyway, right?
There you go.
Yeah.
Don't believe anything you see.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, thanks for joining us. Until next time, don't be afraid to climb the stairway to heaven.
And happy Thanksgiving.
The Revolution Podcast and Golden Spiral Media are not associated with Bad Robot Productions, Kripke Enterprises, Warner Brothers, or NBC. Golden Spiral Media's use of any and all copyrighted material is only for parody, news analysis, critique, or educational purposes as provided within United States Code Title 17, aka Fair Use. For advertising opportunities, live show, and other Golden Spiral Media podcast productions, visit goldenspiralmedia.com. Copyright 2012, Golden Spiral Media.